What's up, YouTube? It's Unger to the Max here. And specifically, I'm talking to the Dog Pound because the Browns and Steelers just played. And you know why I have the Stranger Things shirt? Because I'm using it as a prop first off. But the reason I have it today is because Sunday's game was one of the strangest games I've ever seen. Oops, forgot to put on my Browns hat. There we go. Now I actually look right. So, Sunday's game was one of the strangest games I've ever seen. First of all, how do you force 5 turnovers against a Hall of Fame quarterback? I think there's little doubt that Ben Roethlisberger is a Hall of Fame quarterback. So how the hell do you force 5 turnovers? Denzel Ward had 2 interceptions. Myles Garrett, I think, forced a fumble. There was another interception. Yeah. But honestly, how the hell do you force 5 turnovers but end up with a tie? Are you kidding? Really? You had an opportunity to win the game. The Browns had an opportunity to win the game at the end of regulation. But Tyrod Taylor gets intercepted by the Steelers cornerback number 20. I forget his first name, but last name is Sutton, on a pass to Josh Gordon. And then in overtime, you have an opportunity to win the game on a field goal, and you get blocked. I'm so confused about how to feel about this game. Like, great, we ended our 17-game opening day losing streak. But, yay, that's fantastic. But it ended in because we tied? What? I'll say this. This is the one thing I will say. Tyrod Taylor, on Sunday, he looked too much like a game manager and not enough like a quarterback. What do I mean? There were opportunities. If you saw the game, or if you've seen highlights, or a replay of the game, you will have seen that Tyrod had opportunities to throw the ball down the field to Josh Gordon or Jarvis Landry for big gains. There were times when Josh Gordon and Jarvis Landry were wide open. But instead, what happens? Tyrod Taylor decides to throw the little check down pass and only get like 2 yards, if that. And I saw a lot of this when he was in Buffalo last year. So that's why I'm still a little bit surprised that Buffalo even made it to the playoffs last season. I think that was just pure dumb luck that Baltimore lost because of Cincinnati. Otherwise, Baltimore would have gotten it, and they would have done better. They probably wouldn't have beaten Jacksonville, but it would have been a better game. Anyway, regardless, Tyrod, and I think Bills fans can attest, he is, in general, he doesn't like to take shots down the field. That's just not the type of quarterback he is. Hang on, let me get my stats out from Sunday's game, because I want to make sure I have this right. But there were opportunities for Tyrod to go down the field and throw balls to Jarvis Landry and Josh Gordon, and that didn't happen. The other thing, did they not throw the ball to David Njoku more? From what I saw, and I was at the game, they only threw to him like maybe 5 times. I and I just didn't see it. To be quite honest, I don't. I didn't see. What I saw was maybe one pass to him. That's not good enough. He is a strong, physical tight end. I'm looking at the who deserves more. So I'm looking at the NFL app, and it says Browns 0-0-1. Best start since 2004. Well, isn't that just freaking fantastic? Like, I did I think the Browns had a chance at winning this game? Actually, I did. Mostly because Le'Veon Bell is not there for the Steelers. But, and I get that the weather conditions at First Energy Stadium weren't great. I understand that. But, come on. Let's see. So here are the statistics for Roethlisberger, and then I'll go to Taylor. Roethlisberger was 23 of 41, 335 yards, my bad, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. Okay, how about for the Browns? Tyrod Taylor, 15 of 40, 197 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. However, I wouldn't say it's all bad for Tyrod. I wouldn't say that at all, to be perfectly honest. I even heard what's his name? Gerard Cherry from ESPN 850, who was saying on the post-game show that Tyrod actually outplayed Ben Roethlisberger. Now, I'm no professional broadcaster. I'll admit that myself. I'm not a professional broadcaster. He has a lot more experience than I do. But I don't think I totally agree with it. Even though Tyrod had two less interceptions than him, and they had the same number of touchdowns. Yeah, Tyrod had 1 touchdown pass, and Roethlisberger had 1 touchdown pass. Even though Roethlisberger had 3 interceptions, I still think overall Roethlisberger actually had played better than Tyrod, mainly because he was making decent decisions with the ball, was willing to, at some points, to go downfield, although I don't think he threw. I think the Steelers relied too much on James Conner, but I'll get into that later. But just in general, this was a very confusing game. I believe it's the first tie in the Browns-Steelers rivalry. Not a rivalry. In the Browns-Steelers series. Now, you might have just heard me correct myself. I don't consider Browns-Steelers to be a rivalry right now. The way the game played out on Sunday, it could be a rivalry that's rising from the ashes. That it could be on the rise again. But for me, in my personal opinion, for it to be considered a rivalry, it needs to be that both teams are constantly competitive and, the game doesn't needs to have some sort of impact. And Browns Steelers generally hasn't had that because the Steelers have been, generally first or second in the division. I mean, there were a couple of seasons where Cincinnati won the division or Baltimore won the division, but generally Pittsburgh is right there. But the Browns are usually near the bottom of the Browns are usually near the bottom of the barrel in terms of the AFC North standings. Not gonna lie. And unfortunately, to me, it's that constitutes it to not be a rivalry. I get that Browns fans don't like the Steelers and they consider it to be a rivalry, so you can fire all the comments at me that you want saying you're stupid, you don't know what you're talking about. But in my personal opinion, I don't consider Browns against Steelers to be a rivalry right now. I just don't. If the Browns were consistently good every year and the game had some sort of impact, had maybe it had like playoff implications or AFC North standing implications. You know, if the Browns and Steelers were fighting for the AFC North, for the top of the AFC North, it would have, I think it would get, I would constitute it as to be more of a rivalry. But right now, I don't see that. Now, I will say that the Browns showed that we are a different team this season. Yes, I said we. I am a Browns fan. But I'm not ready to say, you know, that we're on the same level as the Steelers. I am not ready to say that by any means. No way. I think part of the reason we tied with the Steelers was because, number one, the weather. It was rainy. The wind was gusting. So I think that had something to do. Excuse me. I think that had something to do with it. I think the fact that Le'Veon Bell wasn't there for the Steelers had something to do with it. I think the fact that Baker Mayfield wasn't playing quarterback, wasn't the starting quarterback for the Browns, also had something to do with it. And I'm going to bring up something I said earlier. Tyrod Taylor is a game manager, not a quarterback. Baker Mayfield is a quarterback. What's the difference? Baker Mayfield is willing to take those shots down the field. And in tight games that are coming down to the wire, he's willing to go down the field and give his receivers a chance. For God's sakes, think about what he did at Oklahoma. Not that I support this action, but even though it wasn't a tight game when Oklahoma went into Ohio State and beat the Buckeyes, after the game, he took the Oklahoma flag and planted it right in the middle of the Ohio State field. Now, even though I don't support that action, again, I don't support that action, so don't get my words twisted. But what I'm saying is that he has that type of spunkiness, the charisma, he has the balls to do that type of thing. And that translates in the game. Like the semifinal game between Georgia and Oklahoma. For God's sakes, like, he wanted to do whatever was necessary to win that game. Whatever was necessary. Now, of course, in the end, it wasn't enough, but hang on. But what I am saying is that I think if he was starting for the Browns on Sunday, we could have won. Maybe not. Okay, let me rephrase that. Late into the game, I think if Hugh Jackson had put him in late, we could have won that game. I honestly think we could have. Hang on. Um, so we could. I honestly think we could have won the game. Now, people were questioning whether Denzel Ward should have, whether the Browns really made the right decision in drafting Denzel Ward with the um, fourth overall pick. Did the Browns make a mistake in doing that? And I say no. He went out and did yeoman's work on Antonio Brown. Now Antonio Brown, yes, he got a touchdown. He had a touchdown catch. I'll admit to that. But here's the thing: Denzel Ward had intercepted Ben Roethlisberger not once, but twice. He intercepted him twice, and that just shows that he's not afraid of a Hall of Fame quarterback. Not afraid. Do I think he could have done that necessarily against Tom Brady? Maybe not. Did it have something to do with the weather conditions? Possibly. But so there's a couple unknowns. But I think overall, Denzel Ward proved himself worthy of being the number 4 pick. Now, again, I keep going back to this because it just bothers me. What the heck happened? Well, first off, in overtime, I do agree with Hugh Jackson. The Steelers were offside. It seems like the Steelers defense got to the kicker, Zane Gonzalez, really quickly. So I do think they were offside. Just like when the Ravens had that kick 6 against us a few years ago on Monday Night Football in Cleveland that won them the game. I think the Ravens were offside for that. But, not everything's going to go your way. You have to kind of earn that from the refs. And speaking of the refs, they got a call wrong. What a surprise, right? The referees get a call wrong. And it's not a catch or no catch thing. Now it's the whole roughing the passer. And if you're not sure what play I'm talking about, go watch the Myles Garrett hit on Ben Roethlisberger. The Browns were flagged for roughing the passer on that play. However, the VP of the NFL or something came out yesterday, I believe, and said that should not have been called for a penalty. Could that? And watching the play, I completely agree. That play should not have been called roughing the passer. You gotta let these guys play a little bit. You can't give the quarterback every call. Come on. I think that's a little much, don't you? I personally think it's too much. But that's just my personal opinion. It is what it is. But just in general, the NFL needs to clean that up. They're giving too much credit, too much safety net, too much safety to the quarterback. Now, I know that the NFL is trying to protect their quarterbacks and trying to protect their players, but I personally think they're going off the deep end a little bit. And where is a defensive player supposed to hit a quarterback where it won't get called for roughing the passer? When is that supposed to happen? But getting back to what this video is all about, Browns Steelers. Again, Stranger Things says it perfectly. I'm not sure this is one of the strangest things I've ever seen. Like, the game ends in a tie? What? And personally, I'm not sure I like the new NFL overtime rules. Because, and here's why. The players will have just played 4 quarters of 15-minute quarters, 15, not 50, 15 minutes, 4 15-minute quarters in a row. So the NFL goes, let's just chop 5 minutes off and have them play a 10-minute overtime. And if one team scores a touchdown, if the team that gets the ball first scores a touchdown, game over. But if that team scores a field goal, the other team gets a chance to respond. And of course, if time runs out and nobody scores, the game ends in a tie. Example A, Steelers Browns on September 9th, 2018. But I don't get why the NFL changed the policy or changed the rules of overtime from what they were before of the whole sudden death thing. I get that they want to give both teams an equal chance at scoring and, trying to tie the game up. I get that. But you gotta think, football is one of the most physical sports in the U.S., if not the most. I would play it right behind the UFC. However, and might address this later, but I would say the NFL is actually more dangerous than the UFC. But anyway, so the NFL needs to change its overtime policy or overtime rules. Do sudden death, but still give each team a chance to respond. Like in college football. In college football overtime rules, there's no clock. Both teams, on the coin flip, it's not, do you want to kick or receive? It's, do you want offense first or do you want defense first? And I believe they started out the 45-yard line, I want to say, something like that. I might be a little bit off on that, and if they kick a field, even if they score a touchdown, the other team gets a chance to respond. And if they don't score, the game's over. But I would prefer if the NFL did it like that instead of their current overtime format. And the other thing I don't like about overtime, no coaches' challenges. I think, in my personal opinion, there were a couple plays in overtime on Sunday that the Browns could have challenged. But, again, the only way for a play to be reviewed in overtime is if the booth buzzes to the refs and says, you should take a look at this play. So, that part sucks. So, I'm still dumbfounded as to I'm still very confused about how I should feel about this game as a Browns fan. Should I be like, yay, we didn't lose. Oh wait, we didn't win either, but we didn't win. So, should I don't know how to feel about this game. I really don't. Like, personally, how should I feel about this game? How? How should I feel about this game? I really don't know. I personally don't know how to feel about this game. I really don't. Let's see. let me look up some stats. By the way, and I'll might do a little bit of a game preview in this live stream, but the Steelers' next game this week is at home against the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Browns go on the road to take on the New Orleans Saints. So, yeah. I'm just dumbfounded as to how to feel about this game. Like, it's the Browns' best start since 2004. And it's not even a win, it's a tie. So, I'm not sure how to feel about this game. I'm really not. And if you're from the Steelers' perspective, you should be embarrassed about leaving First Energy Stadium with a tie, because you were up 21-7 against on the Brown against us. You were up 21-7 in First Energy Stadium against the new look Browns, and you give up that 14-point lead, and the game ends in a tie? Really? That's the best you can do. That's the best you can do. That's pathetic. And Kansas City has a much more potent offense than the Browns. So, if you were going to give up a 14-point lead against the Browns, what are the Chiefs going to do to you on Sunday? Honestly. So let me give you some stats. Seriously. Rushing. James Conner in 31 attempts had 135 yards, 2 touchdowns, and averaged about 4.4 yards per carry. Roethlisberger, he had 3 attempts, ran for 16 yards, and averaged about 5.3 yards per carry. Antonio Brown had 9 catches on the day. He was held under 100 yards by 7, 93. He did have 1 touchdown, but he was only targeted 16 times. That's not typical. From what I've seen, he's usually targeted about 20 or sometimes even 30 times. So, I would, even though he had a touchdown and 93 yards, I would say that was a subpar performance for Antonio Brown. Juju Smith-Schuster, 5 receptions, 119 yards, 8 targets. Pretty average. Jesse James, the Steelers tight end, 3 receptions, 60 yards, 5 targets. Nothing to write home about. Yeah. Ben Roethlisberger had 2 fumbles and lost both of them. James Conner had 1 fumble and lost it. Yeah. Cameron Sutton was his name, and he had 1 interception. Yeah, so the Steelers on the day only had 1 interception. 1. Now let's go to the Browns. Tyrod Taylor ran for 77 yards on 8 attempts. He did run for 1 touchdown and averaged about 9.6 yards per carry. So roughly 10 yards per carry. Carlos Hyde, 22 attempts, 62 yards, 1 touchdown, and averaged about 2.8 yards per carry. Nick Chubb, I love this pick for the Browns, but they didn't use him enough. 3 attempts, 21 yards, 0 touchdowns, 7 yards, averaged about 7 yards per carry. I think the Browns need to feature him more, personally. And Duke Johnson, I think the Browns, well, first, let me tell you this. He had 5 attempts for 17 yards, 0 touchdowns, and about 3.4 yards. He averaged about 3.4 yards on the ground. So, in total, 38 attempts, 2 touchdowns, and 177 yards for the Browns on rushing. And I think kind of like what the Titans were last season, where Tennessee was an exotic smash mouth, downfield, run it down your throat type of team with, and use play action passes off that. That's the type of team I think we need to be. I think that's what our offense is designed for. That's how our offense is set up. Be a run first team and then use passes off that. And I think that will help with the quarterbacks we have in our division. Because, as you saw, Todd Haley's offense kept Roethlisberger on the sideline. Never really let him find a rhythm. I think that partially can be attributed to why Roethlisberger had 3 interceptions, as well as the weather again. And then Joe Flacco, he likes to be on the field and finding his rhythm. Same thing with Andy Dalton. So if you can run the ball, consistently run the ball, and sustain long drives, it not only helps your offense, it helps your defense. Because if your offense has a quick drive after the defense just got off the field and they have to punt, and the defense goes, oh, we have to go back out there again. Another short drive, punt. Oh, defense, you're right back out. It doesn't give them enough time to really rest and regroup. Whereas if you run the ball and sustain long drives, it gives the defense a chance to recover. So I think the Browns really need to be an exotic smash mouth football team where don't rely fully on running the ball. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is run the ball most of the time and then use passes like play action passes or passes where the QB is rolling out to the right or to the left and do those type of play and run the offense like that. That's what I'm saying. So receiving, Jarvis Landry, 7 receptions for 106 yards, no touchdowns, targeted 15 times. Rashad Higgins, 1 reception for 38 yards, 4 targets. Josh Gordon, 1 reception for 17 yards, 1 touchdown, targeted 3 times. David Njoku, 3 receptions, 13 yards, 0 touchdowns, 7 targets. So he was targeted a little bit more than I thought. But I still say 7 targets is not enough. He needs to be targeted more. Darren Fells, 1 reception for 12 yards, 1 target. So, Duke Johnson, 1 reception for 8 yards, 6 targets. Carlos Hyde, 1 reception for 3 yards, 2 targets. Antonio Callaway, 0 receptions, 0 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 target. Total, 15 receptions, 197 yards, 1 touchdown, 39 targets. And Tyrod Taylor had 1 fumble. But I think he recovered it. But, again, the Browns had more rushing yards than... Actually, no, they had more passing yards. But I still stand by my statement of the fact that the Browns need to be a run-first team. They really do. I think that if you can once you establish the run game, the offense is going to build itself up. Now, switching gears a little bit, I'm going to look ahead to this coming Sunday's game against the New Orleans Saints. So, the Saints are coming off a surprising loss at home in week 1 against an NFC South, a divisional opponent in the NFC South, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What's surprising about that? Well, Jameis Winston wasn't the starting quarterback for the Buccaneers. It was actually Ryan Fitzpatrick, or as some people call him, Fitzmagic. But, hang on, I just want to make sure the volume's all the way up. There we go. But, the Saints, even though they lost on the Minnesota Miracle last year, they swept the Rookie of the Year for both offense and defense. Because Alvin Kamara won it on the offensive side of the ball. And, what's his name? Who won Defensive Player of the Year for the Saints? I forget his name. Who was that? I don't remember the Saints. I don't remember who won Defensive Player of the Year. So hang on, I'm going to look this up. Who won Defensive Rookie of the Year? Marshawn Lattimore, that's it. And they both play for the Saints. But I think and there was a combined 88 points in this game. The Saints lost 48-40. So the Saints coming into this game will be 0-1, a traditional record. And us, well, we'll be going to the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans with a record of, wait for it, 0-0-1. I'm still dumbfounded about the Browns Steelers game. I'm so confused about it. I don't know. But I feel like the Saints are going to try and rely more on the passing game. Because without Mark Ingram, it seems like their rushing attack has fizzled. They tried using Mike Gillislee with Alvin Kamara. I don't think that. From what I saw in highlights, that didn't really work at all. So I think Denzel Ward's going to be on Michael Thomas because that's why we drafted Denzel Ward, to match up with these number 1 wide receivers. Week 1, he was matched up with Antonio Brown. Week 2, he'll be matched up with Michael Thomas. I'm not sure who he'll be matched up with week 3 against the Jets. But when we play the Bengals, he's going to be matched up with A.J. Green. When we play the Falcons, he's going to be matched up with Julio Jones, probably. When we play the Broncos, Demaryius Thomas. Do we play the Colts this season? No. I'm not sure who he'll be matched up with when we play the Ravens. Who else do we play? He'll probably be matched up with Amari Cooper when we play the Raiders. Who will he be matched up with? He'll probably be matched up with Keenan Allen when we play the Chargers. Who else am I missing? Oh, and he'll probably be matched up with DeAndre Hopkins when we play the Texans. So, most likely, he'll be on these number 1 wide receivers for the opponent. So, there's that. So, that's going to be the matchup I'm watching. Denzel Ward against Michael... I already forget his name. Michael Thomas. There we go. I just think that's the key matchup in this game. As well as the Saints' offensive line against the Browns' defensive line. the Browns were able to generate a lot of pressure on Roethlisberger last week. And they were able to sack him a couple times, force him to get the ball out quickly, move around in the pocket. Now, Roethlisberger is an escape artist. Not necessarily a mobile quarterback like a Russell Wilson or a Deshaun Watson, but, he'll step up in the pocket and make something out of nothing. And he doesn't just stand in the pocket. Drew Brees, not that type of quarterback. He'll move around in the pocket, but from what I've seen of him, generally, he doesn't move outside the pocket and, run for 25 yards or something. Russell Wilson might do something like that. Maybe Roethlisberger. But Drew Brees doesn't do that. Isn't that type of quarterback. He's the quarterback that likes to stay in the pocket. And I think that actually helps the Browns defense a lot. Because you saw Myles Garrett was able to get to Roethlisberger. Emmanuel Ogbah was able to get to Roethlisberger. And again, Roethlisberger likes to move around in the pocket and, he'll rush for 5 or 6 yards in a play. He did that a couple times on Sunday. Again, Drew Brees will not do that. He might run and slide for 3 yards, but he's not consistently going to do that. So I think the Browns will be able to get home and sack Drew Brees. But here's the problem. Drew Brees can get the ball out quickly, whereas Roethlisberger, I think, holds on to the ball a little bit too long. Which reminds me, you know how I said Tyrod Taylor is more of a game manager than a quarterback? That's another one of his flaws. Just like I mentioned with Roethlisberger of how I think he holds on to the ball a little bit too long. I think Tyrod Taylor holds on to the ball a little bit too long. And that will allow the Saints defense, like specifically Cameron Jordan, to get him. To go sack him. Whereas if Baker Mayfield was starting, which I wish he was, but he's not. If he was starting, he would get the ball out quick, on target, and know who to throw it to and all that. But I think Hugh Jackson did the smart thing of saying, you know what, we're not going to throw him into the fire right away. I think I generally like that. Here's the thing, though. Is you didn't give Baker Mayfield a fair chance to win the starting quarterback position at all. Right when we got Tyrod Taylor, Hugh Jackson came out and said, he's our starting quarterback. Then you go and draft Baker Mayfield with the first overall pick. You don't generally do that, where you generally put the number 1 overall pick right on the field right away, as, because he was the first overall pick. Now, Jared Goff, I'll say he's an exception to the rule, because even though he was the number 1 overall pick, the Rams didn't start him right away. And that was the right move. Because I don't think, even though I think he's shown that he was worthy of being the first overall pick, I'm not sure that it was the right move for the Rams to sit him down and let him learn the playbook better and really understand what it means to be an NFL quarterback. Whereas with Baker Mayfield, I think the Browns, we should have started him day 1. But in Hugh Jackson's defense, the Browns started DeShone Kizer week 1 last year. Now, he wasn't the number one overall pick or anything like that. Heavens, no. But he was drafted late second round, and, you know, so the Browns put him out there as a rookie, and he did not do well. Of course, the Browns went 0-16. So I get Hugh Jackson's apprehensiveness to put Baker Mayfield in as a starting quarterback. I get it. Let the offensive line get shored up and let Tyrod Taylor take all the bumps and bruises while the offensive line figures itself out. And then once the offensive line figures itself out, that's when you put Baker Mayfield in. That's when you put the defending Heisman Trophy winner in. Now, I do wish if the Browns win this week, which I'm leaning towards that not happening, because I think the Saints don't want to start 0-2 again, but clearly anything can happen. Even, for God's sakes, another tie could happen. Oh, God. Lord, help me if that happens. Oh, yeah. But maybe the Browns will surprise me, and they'll come out with the win. I don't think it's going to happen, because, again, I don't think New Orleans wants to start 0-2 again. Generally, nobody does. It's if a team comes up to you and says, hey, we want to start 0-2, they're lying to you. They want to start 2-0. But if the Browns somehow figure out a way to win this game, maybe you'll leave Tyrod Taylor in for the Week 3 Thursday night matchup against the Jets. But if the Browns lose, and maybe this is just because it would be like a rookie against rookie matchup, but I think you put Baker Mayfield in for that Thursday night game against the Jets. That's my personal opinion. But if I had to guess, it will be Tyrod for at least 5 or 6 games. That's just my perspective. Now, if Tyrod gets us some wins, that's fantastic. And Hugh Jackson comes out smelling like roses. But if the Browns start off, 1-5 or 0-6, then people are going to be looking at him like, first off, why are you still the head coach? And number 2, why haven't you put Baker Mayfield in yet? Yeah. I'm personally still trying to figure out why Hugh Jackson is still the head coach. Like, Mike Pettin, who was the head coach before Hugh Jackson, there was a season where, in 2014 actually, where the Browns were winning the division per week. This was when I first had season tickets. We got a thing in the mail about possible NFL wild card, and it looked like there was hope for the Browns. Of course, they would go on to lose a key game to the Indianapolis Colts in the last few seconds by a score of 25-24, which pretty much dashed the hopes of making it to the playoffs for the first time since 2002, which was, funny enough, Browns at Steelers. But why does Hugh Jackson get a third chance when he's only won one game in the past 2 years? But Mike Pettin gets fired when he nearly had us on the verge of making the playoffs. That part I don't totally understand. I don't generally understand that. And Now, I kind of wish I was a fly on the wall for when the Browns sat down with Mike Pettin to tell him he was fired. I wish I could have been there personally to advocate for him and say, like, dude, he had us on the verge of making the playoffs. You know, uh, so I don't know. Maybe keep him as your defensive coordinator. I don't know. He's in Green Bay. Mike Patton's in Green Bay now. Hugh Jackson is still the head coach. Again, only won one game in the past 2 years. And we were lucky to win that game against the Chargers. It took a last second field goal. I don't know. I will admit, there were some games last year that the Browns should have won. Like, for example, the Green Bay game. The Browns weren't playing Aaron Rodgers. They were playing Brett Hundley, and yet the game went into overtime, and the Browns and we lost. Miami, in Miami, I don't think that wasn't last year. That was 2 seasons ago. Yes, 2 seasons ago. Browns should have won that game in Miami, but what happened? Browns gave up a game-winning touchdown in overtime and lost. That same season, the week before, that Miami game was week 3. Week 2, at home against the Ravens. The Browns had a sizable lead against the Ravens. What happened? Ravens came all the way back and beat the Browns. I don't remember. I think it was on a last-second field goal. I don't remember that. No, it was Browns-Ravens was week 3, and Browns-Dolphins was week 4, because Browns-Saints was week 2, and the Browns won that on a late field goal, I believe. And the Browns should have beat Washington in week 5. I don't like to say Redskins because I personally, even though I'm not Native American, I don't like that name. I think that name is very derogatory towards Native Americans. I personally don't like it. So I wish Dan Snyder would, I wish Roger Goodell could somehow get Dan Snyder, I believe he's the owner of the Redskins, to change the team name and logo and colors. Or keep the colors, but choose a different team name and logo. I just don't like it. Yeah. So anyway, getting back to the main point of this video. Browns Steelers. I can't say it enough. I am dumbfounded as to how this game ended in a tie. I am absolutely dumbfounded. And I said it at the beginning, and I'll say it again. How the hell do you force a team to give you the ball 5 times, and yet you don't win the game? What? How is that possible? Oh, come on. If the Steelers had made the Browns turn over the ball 5 times, Ben Roethlisberger would have turned those turnovers into 40 points easily. Tom Brady would have easily converted the Browns' turnovers into points. Aaron Rodgers probably could have turned those turnovers into points. But could Tyrod Taylor? No. And don't get me wrong, Tyrod Taylor is not on the same level as Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady or even Ben Roethlisberger. Although Ben Roethlisberger and Tyrod Taylor were on the same level on Sunday. They were. Look, again, I read you the stats. Tyrod only had 1 interception. Big Ben had 3. So that's my point. So that's going to do it for this video. I'm going to try and do live streams like this during every Wednesday during the season to kind of recap the previous game and then look ahead to the next game. So let me know in the comments if you liked this video. And also, for the Thursday night game with against the Jets, I can't make any promises, but I might be doing a video with fellow YouTuber and a huge New York Jets fan, Gangrene David. If you haven't checked out his channel, you should. His videos are fantastic. I will put a link for his channel in the description, and I will post a little channel bubble on this video. But until next time, this is Unger to the Max saying go Cavs, go Blue Jackets, and let's go Browns.